So in part 3 of this Kontakt 5 series, we looked at building an instrument from a chord sample and extending the duration using a loop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some ways that we can make this sound a little bit more interesting by using some filtering and modulation. Now, Kontakt is an incredibly deep application and it can be daunting when you first use it. So I'm going to suggest let's take away the insert effects and the send effects. We're going to focus on this row. This is the group insert effects. I want you to think about this as adding insert effects to the sample. Okay, so what I'm going to do is drop down and we're going to go to effects, and I want to add something that's going to brighten the sound up a bit. If you remember, when we chose the sample, we chose a portion of the loop that was certainly brighter than the very beginning of the sound, but I think it needs a little bit more energy. This is how it was. So I've dropped down on insert here, the first group insert effects slot, onto lo-fi. Now that sounded a little bit too digital for me, so I'm going to adjust the sample rate. I quite like that texture. It sounds like there's some vinyl on it or something, so it's got a real nice kind of grain to it. So that's what I want as my starting point. So I've added some extra energy to the sound. Now what I'm going to do is on the second insert, I'm going to drop down a filter, I'm going to go to low pass, and I'm going to pick one of these ladder filters. So these are modeled on the Moog style filter, like on the Mini Moog. And there's a real nice one here. So the low pass 4-pole version of the ladder filter. Let's have a listen. It's sounding great. Now, one of the things that I'm noticing when I'm playing is that sometimes I'm overlapping notes. And so what I'm going to do, because this is a chord, I'm going to make the max polyphony up here on the instrument header to 1. So I'm never going to make that mistake now. Only one of these chords can play at once. This is sounding great. Let me just crank up that resonance a bit. Now at the moment, that's me remote controlling that filter cutoff. But instead, what I want to do is add an envelope to that. So this is like adding a filter envelope. It's really, really easy. We can right click on the cutoff itself, come down to envelopes, drop on ADSR. Okay, so this is added now. Underneath, we've got a modulation router. If you want to see what this is connected to, just click on this button and you can see that down here. So this is now a filter envelope. We control the amount of this influencing the filter cutoff by this slider here. Okay, so for the moment, we've got the full value. Let me show you. So you can see here, this attack is the time it takes to go from the low frequency here up to the highest frequency. So look. And it always shows you whereabouts in terms of the frequency the sound is. So you can see here it went up and then it came down to the sustain level. So I could take the sustain level down, have a listen. So we're now at the sustain frequency as such. That's what's happening. So the filter envelope, the sustain is affecting the frequency of the cutoff. And that's when we're actually holding those keys down. And of course, we can hold them down as long as we want because of the fact that we looped the sample on the previous video. So let's slowly attack a bit more. Let's take the decay out a bit longer. Let's have a listen to that. For me, the decay is a little bit too quick. I want this thing to evolve a bit. So that's got a real interesting life to it. Okay, so we've basically added a little bit of brightness through the lo-fi. We've then put the ladder filter on. We've got modulation. The filter cutoff frequency is being modulated by the envelope here. And just to finish off, just to spice it up just a little bit, as it's coming down this decay, I really fancy wobbling the sound a little bit. So adding a little bit of LFO to that filter cutoff. So what we do is we come up, we right click over here, LFOs, let's go to sine. And now you can take a look, click down here, you can see it's going to be modulated. It's going to do it straight away. Now for me, I need that faster. I also want to reduce the amount it's being modulated. So this is the strength of the LFO modulation on that cutoff. And you know, I said I want it on the decay. The way that I do this is to take a fade in. All right, so we're going to work it out. Let's take it. If we wanted to get mathematical, we'd add the attack and then the decay. I'm just going to do this by ear. Let's make that come in a little bit later on. That's great, but I want to reduce the amount. It's a little bit too much. There we go, that's wicked. I'll tell you what, if you wanted that to be tempo synchronized, you could do that. All right, so you see over here the frequency, the hertz. If you drop this down, you can actually get this little secret menu that gives you tempo synchronized stuff. All right, so you can choose any of those grid divisions. So this is a really great way to start getting creative with the samples that you've loaded up. So the starting point is loading in the sample, double clicking that sample over on the file browser here, and then it creates the instrument. Set up your loop here so you get all that flexibility. If we didn't have the loop, we wouldn't be able to go for the longer periods of these envelopes here. So dropping on some modulation. So all you do is you just right click, and this works on the group insert effects. All right, the behavior is a bit different on the instrument effects. So the insert effects, I would watch out for them. Don't use them. If you want to get this kind of creative stuff going off, use the group insert effects. All right. So there's tons of modulation stuff going on. You can check all this out. Look, so you go over here on the browser, click on modules, and you can see all kinds of things here. Some explanations about these filter types. You've got the text box down the bottom. And oh man, modulators. There's so much to play around with here. And I'm going to try and cover some of this later on in the series.